Okay, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about user authentication. I know that a lot of you have already put together your whatever the system diagram is that talked about user sign up. And the user authentication is a very big part of that sign up procedure. So I wish I could have talked about this last week, but we didn't have time to. So we'll do this today. So obviously, when people sign up for accounts on the different websites, they type in some sort of name, email address, but there's always the password. And how you save the password is very important. And so here, the key thing is storing passwords safely is the most important thing. I don't know if you have the same problem in Korea, but sometimes in the United States, you'll hear in the news that some company had their passwords compromised, or they lost a lot of passwords. Some people got access to the passwords. And that can be a very bad thing, obviously, but it's a incredibly bad thing if the passwords are stored in plain text. And by plain text, I mean, if somebody types in their password as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you save in the database 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's plain text, not encrypted, not hashed. You can just read it right away. And obviously, a database with passwords in plain text is, once somebody has it, they immediately know your password. They don't have to do any work. They have your passwords. And so I don't know how these people get the passwords, but they do sometimes. And so we want to protect ourselves from situations like that. And how do we do that? We hash the passwords. And over time, there have been many different methods for hashing passwords. So you can see hello Mike that's just plain text. And if you saw something like this, a password like 731EA5 blah blah blah, this long thing, you think, oh, that's hard to guess. That's a good password. That's some good hashing. But that system, which is through MD5, which used to be very common, that password or that hash system is not very safe. And just as a little test, let's look at this website here, md5gromweb.com. So this is a MD5 conversion and reverse lookup. So I'm going to create a hash from a password. And so let's say I type in a long password like, this is my long password. Try to guess it. That's pretty long, right? So if I want to create a hash, I click this button. Oop. Wrong one. So I took this password and I hashed it. And so now my password looks like this, 05C. There's no way to guess that. And so you might think, okay, if I save that in my database, hash, like a lot of you have a field called password hash or hashed password or something hash. You think, okay, I'm done. That's hard to guess. That's all I need to do. Not save a password in plain text. I'm done. But watch. If I use that as a password, so if you think like a bad person, a hacker, once they get a password or a list of passwords, they're going to run through different algorithms or programs to try to crack the passwords. And so one of the easiest things they can do is like this website. You can try to reverse MD5 the text. So if you gave me a password, it's like, well, let me just guess. Let me try MD5 as the first step. And so we can do a reverse and watch. Boom. Did that take a second? Half a second? That took like a millisecond, right? In less than a second, we already cracked that password back to the original password. That's not a good hash. The better hashing methods, a password should take minutes, days, hours to crack. So if you gave somebody a password and I said, try to hack that back to the original password, it should take them a long time to do that. And this long time that it takes, hackers want easy stuff. If they see a password that takes days to crack, they might just go on to some other thing to do. But if they can crack this in 1 second, it's like, okay, I'm going to keep on going. Let me keep on cracking other people's passwords. So my point is, don't use MD5 as a password because it is incredibly easy to hack. So go back. Okay, so if we can't use MD5, okay, here's me going through the process. So for those who are doing the web stuff, we're using PHP. So here we have a PHP function for hashing passwords. So it's called password_hash. And this one uses a much stronger encryption method. And at the time, as I wrote here, the current encryption method that's being used is bcrypt. And this password hash will use whatever the current method that the PHP creators think is the most easy or the best one to use at the time. But later, if there's a better hashing method, PHP might switch that method. But the good thing is you don't have to change the function. PHP will automatically use whatever is current. And so that's just pointing out that you can always use password hash even 5 or 10 years later. If they use a different method, password hash is still the right function to use. And so, so I want to show you how to use this password hash function. So it's just like a regular function. You have the name of the function, parentheses, and then here's your plain text password in quotes. You can use single quotes or double quotes, it doesn't matter. Comma, and this part has to be all capital letters, password default. By using password default, you're telling PHP that I want to use whatever is the current algorithm at the time for encryption. And so if we do that, it will produce a hash password that looks something like this, or something that looks like this. But what's interesting about this hashed password is every time I run this password hash function, even with the same password and the same password default, it changes the value. So these 3 lines are all different hashes, but they're all hashes of the password hello Mike. And they do that because every time you run the password hash, PHP is adding this, something called a salt string. They're adding this hidden little set of characters that changes the original string to something else. And so all this is automatic that you don't have to worry about, but it's just interesting to see that you can produce different passwords that every time you should never have the same password hash. And so to go backwards, once you have a hashed password, can you go back to the original? In most cases, it's better that you don't, because that means that you can crack the password. So instead of trying to take this hash password and crack it and get back to hello Mike, PHP uses something called password verify. So with the password verify, you have a function, password verify. The password that is plain text that you somebody typed in, and then encrypted password. If you run the function and it returns a 1, then PHP is telling you this is the same password. If it returns false, then it's telling you that that encrypted hash is not the same password as hello Mike. And so, so you have to use, so when it comes to your project, you will be using password hash when somebody signs up, and you'll use the password verify when somebody tries to sign in. And so I'm going to run a quick program. I need to get the code. So this code is for a little PHP script. So vi password.php. Save the file. And so this is expecting the first argument to be a password. Oops. In case you have a script that you want to run and you don't want to go to a web browser, you can run a PHP script through command line. And so I don't want to open my browser, write it, and test it. So I just rather do it here. So I can do php-f password.php and send in a, we'll do this one. This is my password. And so when I run this program, password.php, and I send it, this is my plain text password, I have a loop that runs the password hash function 5 times. And so you can see, if I run it 5 times, it produces 5 completely different passwords. The only thing that's the same is this 2y $10 $. Everything after that is completely different. And so that's using so just as I mentioned, this is the password hash function, and I'm showing you how to use it. So I have hashed is the variable equals password hash, the password that I entered, and then in all capital letters, password default. And then I print out the password that was created, and I do it. This is how you do a for loop. So every programming language has a different syntax. So in PHP, we have semicolons. Some other language, you have commas. So just know that this is the for syntax. So it's semicolons. So I run this 5 times, and I print out the password. So this password also can accept a second argument. And so I have this function here. If is set second argument, then I'm telling the program that I want to run password verify. And so the password verify has 2 parameters. One is the plain text password, and the second is the hashed password. And then it will produce a Boolean value, which I call true false. And so I have this echo, is the password correct? And var dump. The reason I use var dump is because var dump, if you can remember to one of my earlier lessons, var dump will tell you the data type of the variable. It'll tell you if it was a numeric, string, but it can also tell you if it's a Boolean, the Boolean value. And so we can run this real quick. So I can go back to the php-f password, the plain text password, and then I can't remember if I need quotes. Put quote around it. So I said the password was, this is my password. The hash was, and I gave it that one. And I said, is the password correct? It said, it's a Boolean value, and the value is true. If I changed it, it should say false. Or if I did a different one, like this one, it's true. So the point is, there are two functions that you have to use, password hash and password verify. So there's another concept that we call a nonce. So here's a definition. A nonce is an arbitrary number used only once in a cryptographic communication in the spirit of a nonce word. They are often random or pseudo-random numbers. So it's saying that a nonce is like a text string that should be unique and used only once. So a nonce can be a hashed value, but in this case, the nonce, in some cases you could say an MD5 I said was a bad hash of a password, because the reason it's bad is because you could take the hash password and get back to the original value. So that's bad. But if you were to MD5 some regular string in order to create a hash value, that's fine. Like if your goal is just to produce a string that somebody won't be able to guess, then MD5 is fine. And so, or you could write a random string generator. So let me give you an idea of this nonce business. Well, we'll talk about nonce as I go through some examples, but just pay attention in the sense that, so the system should save a hashed version of the password, yes. And so when you send email to the user to activate the account, usually you'll use some sort of nonce value, which is different than the password. And we're going to use that nonce as kind of like in some ways, like a primary key. Because we want to give the user a link to click, but we don't want to give the user too much information about your account. So you kind of use this nonce to kind of hide some information. And so we'll look at that. So I just want to go through a couple examples of user signups and the whole, like your project, I think Dr. Cho wants you to do user sign up, user sign in, forgot password, reset password. Kind of different is look up users, things like that. But all the different ones that require accounts, I want to kind of show you some just a couple examples from different websites to kind of show you how they lay out their forms on the pages, and also what their emails look like and what the email links look like. Just to give you an example of what you might want to produce on your own. And so I don't have the code for these. I just have the websites that I took a bunch of screenshots for. And so I don't remember why I picked these websites, but I just did. Mailgun is a website that we used for my other project, and it's for sending one email to a lot of different people. And so if you have like a newsletter that you want to send to 50 people, you can use Mailgun to send the emails. So let's just take a look. So as a computer programmer, you might like to write code, but you also might like to do something called UX design. Have you heard of UX? User interface, things like that? User experience. And so I tell people that I do not ever want to go back to school. I have 1 degree and I don't need 2. I don't like college. I don't like to study. If I want to learn to program, I will do it myself. I don't want to sit in a classroom like you guys are doing now. But if I did go back to school, the degree I would probably get would be UX design, to kind of study how user interfaces are, why people do certain things, and how to make things better. And so that's why some of these things I read about are very interesting. So this is an example of Mailgun and their landing page, the first page you get to. And some of the things I'm going to point out are just common conventions, some things that a lot of websites have in common. And so you can see these 2 arrows. So one thing a lot of websites have in common is the location of the login buttons. Usually they're always top right, not top left, not the bottom, but always top right. And so usually you'll have a pair, login and sign up. In this case, they're 2 different colors, but that's not a big deal. So we have 2 buttons, login, sign up. Sometimes you might have login, sometimes you might have register. But usually there's 2 buttons at the top of the page. And so if you clicked on login, here's an example, hopefully you can see, of their login page. So just a simple form. Be very specific about what you are expecting a user to enter. Here it's email address. Sometimes it might be username. So make it clear what you want them to enter. Password, and then login. So that's pretty obvious. But what is not so obvious are these at the bottom. So what is very common for all login pages is to have 2 separate links. One is forgot your password, another is something related to sign up. Because sometimes when people click in the login button, they might have clicked it by accident. Or they get to the login page, they say, geez, I don't remember my password. And so sometimes to say that you want to make things easy for the users. And so if a user forgot their forgot their password, you don't want the user to have to click someplace else or click 5 different times to try to retrieve or reset their password. And so it's very common to have, I think almost every website will have a forgot your password link at the bottom of the page, because you want the user to just, I can't remember my password, to have a link right there so they don't have to click anywhere else. But also, the person who came to the login page, they might realize, I don't even have an account yet. Okay. And so instead of making the person click other places to find how to create an account, you give them a link right here and let them click to get the login, the sign up page. And so it's very, very, very common to see those 2 links together. If this goes away. There's another link below that related to privacy, but that is not, that's not very important, not very common. And so this is their sign up page. Every sign up page is going to look different. This one, so to me, I don't really like their sign up page. Usually most forms go straight down, just one column of fields. This one has kind of left, right, left, right. That is probably less common. But here they have a name field, email, password, and confirm password. So for sure, when you design your form, you want to include the confirm password, because it would be very bad for somebody to type in a password. Let's say they meant to type in something, but they accidentally hit an extra character and they hit submit. If they try to type in their password again, they're going to type in the password that they thought they typed and not realize that they actually hit an extra character. And so by having a confirmed password, you make sure that the user is entering the password that they really meant. And so when somebody signs up, you're going to have to do a little check to make sure that the password is equal to the confirmed password. And then here we just have this create an account button. And so I'm going to point out something I don't like about their registration. So one thing that you want to do is you always want to tell the user what's going on. And so it's good that they have this green message. After you create the account, you want to tell the user your account has been created. You don't want them to guess, like, is my account ready? What do I do next? Here in green, they say you are signed up, and then we did this. But one thing that they don't mention is you need to go check your email to activate the account. They don't even tell you that. They think maybe you automatically know it. But so I think it's important for you to, as soon as somebody creates an account, tell them, thank you for signing up. Please go check your email to activate your account, or something like that. So give the user a message. That's my point. And so even though they don't have that message that check your email, they do send the email. And so it's kind of strange that, okay, they have this email. And so when you send your email, obviously you have to have the subject. And so they make it very clear, activate your Mailgun account to start sending email. And so this is where you have to practice your English skills. You have to write a nice message. Thanks for choosing Mailgun. Please activate your account by clicking the button below. Or, thank you for signing up. Please click this link. Something like that. And so now we're going to talk about that nonce that I mentioned before. That nonce was just some alphanumeric string. So as you can see at the very bottom, it just says https mailgun.net accounts activate in this string. So the point of this is, so the HTML, after you click this link, it's going to basically send the person to this link here. And so that link, you can have a nonce of 5, 6, 10 characters. You can use 20. It doesn't matter. You just want to give something that's hard to guess. And so you also want to save that nonce string into the database, so that when somebody clicks that link, your website will look up the information and then go to the next step. So let me talk more about that and go to a text screen. Use this just to make it bigger. that one look like something like mailgun.net accounts activate, and then some string, right? Not that important what it is, but some string. So let's assume that this is the link that's in your email. And so now let's talk about how do you use that? So in order to think about that, we have to go back to our routes. Let me find one. So remember this? So as I mentioned, when we talk about the routes file, every URL that somebody's going to enter has to be in the routes file. So if somebody had a website like this, a URL similar to this needs to be in your routes file. So I would do something like this. You can see it says /account/activate. So I would do the same thing. Accounts, activate, and then this string here, I don't know what somebody's going to type in, so I can create some sort of variable. So I can call it nonce. And then I can send it to some sort of user controller, and I can say, and tell it to go to some sort of activate function, right? So by having this, if I clicked this activate link, but if you saw the link in the email, it would look like this. If I click that link, it would go to this web page, Mailgun, activate, accounts activate, blah, 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 blah. And so if somebody clicked that, they would go to my website, the routes file would look through, it's like, okay, where is that link? Accounts activate, nonce, okay, I have it. So then we go to user controller and go to the activate function. So if I did that, well, I'll use this test controller. I'm just writing fake stuff, so it doesn't matter. Oh. So I have a public function, copy this, activate. And then I'm just going to write pseudocode. So now I have this nonce string, right? What do I do with that? My point of using this is, so the user clicked link with nonce. Equals that right there. So I can select ID from users where, let's say I just use a nonce field. Nonce equals so I'd write some sort of query like that. And then I'd say if found. So if I find an ID value, then, so if I find an ID value, that means that, yeah, this tells me that this person is actually in the database. So that I can say, if found, then activate account. How do I activate account? Well, everybody's database is different, but I think some of you have status or permissions or active. I'll just do it my way. So I can do update users and set. Let's say my field is called is active equals 1, because mine's a tiny int. And I say where ID equals whatever this ID is. I want this value. If not found, then give user error message. Okay, the account could not be activated. Please check the link. I don't know. Something. But so this update user set is active. That is totally up to you. How you might have a field called status, activated, valid, whatever. You could have true, false, 1, 0. If you remember, as I said with the update statements, you must have a where. If you don't have a where statement here, then you're going to make every account active. You don't want to do that. So make sure you have the where. Okay, so kind of giving you some fake code, some useful code. It'll be close to the same, but a little different. But so basically, you can look up the account. If it's there, then you have to, this is your primary key. So where ID, that field equals primary key. If not found, give an error. So that's how I would do something like these people are doing. This is what I would do if I had to activate an account. So we'll move on. So one of your goals is to be able to reset passwords. And so in order to reset a password, there's only one piece of information you need. In the past, when people have shown their system diagrams to reset password, sometimes they ask for email address and then some other information like gender or birthday. It's like that information is not necessary to look up the account. I just need your email address. I mean, you can tell me your name, but the only thing I really care about is the email address. And so they type in your email address, and then you have to do some sort of check, because you have to make sure that the email address that you put in, that is entered, is actually the email address of the person using the you want to make sure the person actually owns that account, because if I type in your email address and I say reset your password, that means I'm going to mess with your account. You don't want somebody to do that. You only want somebody to change the account that they own. And so then we have to do something similar to the activate account. The purpose of the activate account is to make sure that whoever signs up with the account and has the email address, only the person who owns the account is actually going to receive that email address. And so they're basically verifying. One key word here. Verificate is not an English word. I don't remember which team had it, but verificate is not a word. Verify or activate, but you need to make sure with the reset password that you also, so do I have it? I don't have it. Well, I'll talk about the process just to save you time. I'm going to help you with your system diagram. When somebody types in their email address, what happens? We'll go back to here. We'll think about it. User clicks reset password button. User fills in email on reset password form, right? So they type in their email, user hits submit button. So now what happens? So request gets sent to server. Server sends email to user with a link to click. So the email, so similar to this activation email, instead of activate your Mailgun account, it might say to reset. It might say reset your password for Mailgun account, and then it says, you know, to reset your password, please click the link below. And so only the person who owns the account is going to get the reset password email. So what's funny is that if I had this account and I put in his email address, he's going to get this email saying, please reset my password. I didn't click this. You can't stop that from happening, right? I can go to any website like Amazon and click reset password and type in any one of you. I have everybody's Gmail account here, right? I could enter any one of you, but nothing happens. Just because I type in your email address, it doesn't reset your password, right? It just sends you an email saying a reset password has been requested. Nothing happens until you click this link and then change the password. So it's safe. It causes some trouble, but you can't stop anybody from doing that, right? You can't stop me from typing your password, your email address. But you want to make sure that only you can do the reset. And so that's why we have something like this email. And so what happens when we get this email? So just like this one, Mailgun had accounts activate. I could have, real quick. So if you see here, a nonce should be unique and use only once. Access denied. What? So I don't have one now, but I'll add a nonce varchar 128. Okay. So let's pretend here. If I was on Mailgun and I filled in this form, so after I filled in the form Mailgun would send me an email after it created this nonce. So it created this nonce, and it saves the nonce in this field that I call nonce, right? Oh, sorry, I need a password field. One piece of information: when you use the password default, the current minimum field size is 60. Hear that? The minimum for PHP right now, if you use the password default, the minimum length of that string is 60. Okay? If you have less than 60, it's going to get cut off. So minimum is 60. I'm okay with using 128. That's fine. So just to tell you, I should save a hash password. So when I create the account, I save a hashed password and I create this nonce string. And then I send the email with a link that looks like that. When they click it, it does that stuff. But as I said, the nonce should be used only one time. So if found, then activate account. And so we say set is active to 1, comma, nonce equals null. Got it? So that's saying, so if I change this to, I want to add a is active tiny int. So my is active should be 0 at the very beginning because it's not activated. So I'm saying my update user set is active equals 1, nonce equals null, where ID equals 1. So I run this. Customers. So if I look at this now, update, you see the nonce field is now null, is active as 1. So the point of change of the nonce to null means if that person tries to click this link again, it shouldn't work. So this select ID from users where nonce equals so-and-so, that nonce, it's gone, right? Because they already activated their account. So that nonce is not there. And so then you have to give the user a message. Account cannot be activated, blah, 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 right? So, but we're looking at the reset password right now. So I say, instead of an activate link, we can send them a reset link. Looks almost exactly the same. And then we change this nonce to be something like that. So what happens? Server sends email to user with a link to click. So I send this link. So I say link looks like, okay. So now when the user clicks that link, now we have to change our routes page. And so we can take this one. Instead of activate, it becomes reset. Same thing with nonce. And this one means change to reset. And I can say reset password, right? Okay. Now we've changed. Now we've added a user controller. So now we can say, I'm almost doing your work for you. reset. And then what happens here? The same thing. You select and you look for the nonce. If the nonce is there, okay, this one's different. So what's the procedure? If found, we don't activate an account. If we find that nonce there, which in this case is a new one. So now, because I sent this link, I have to insert into my database the new nonce. So now I've got a nonce of that guy, right? So so somebody clicks that link, then the server, then it goes to this routes page, then it goes to the reset function. It says, let me run this database query. Select ID from users where nonce equals so-and-so. If found, then user is owner. Then I'm saying the person who clicked is the person who owns the account. So give user the new password form, new password page. If not found, give error. Yeah. So the user, if it's found, we give the new password page reset nonce, null. So that means if they enter the email address, they get the email, they click the link. If it's good, then you would send them to a page that has the page that says, please enter your new password. Please enter, and then the confirm password. So basically, they have a page with password information. So that's the process for reset your password. You can convert my stuff into some sort of system diagram, but yeah. And then this is just to point out that you need to give users messages whenever they do something right or wrong. And so if somebody types in something wrong, like a bad email or password, you need to make it clear to them that something's wrong. And so this is a good time to learn about JavaScript or jQuery and to be able to kind of put the message directly below the form or to send an alert message, things like that. So next example is just a website called Heroku. Heroku is a free platform for, I guess, to kind of build applications. So there's a similar login or sign up. Please make it clear. These suggestions come from teaching this class 5 or 6 times. Whenever people start to show their UI diagrams, when they start to show screenshots, examples of their mobile app or their forms, they have the form information, but sometimes they forget to put a title on the page. So please make it clear what this page is for. So this is a log into your account. This is log into Mailgun. This is reset your password. This is login. So make it clear what this is for. So log into your account. Nice big login button. But like I said, usually there are 2 links. With every login page, there's always a reset password or create account. Here it is. Forgot your password. Need a Heroku, sign up. So they don't put the 2 exactly together, but both of those links are on the page. And so So people set up accounts in many different ways. I show you this one just to show you a method that is, I would say, very different. Well, not crazy different, but they do their account creation in more than one step. So you can see here, they ask for name, first name, last name, email, and then create a free account. So they don't ask for a password at this point. They just ask for the name and email. Not as common, but that's okay. I think it's better to do what everybody else does, to be very, to follow the same process, because that's what people expect. But as long as it's user-friendly and makes sense, I guess it's okay. So this one, as I said, it's important to send the user messages about what is the next step. So after I click the create free account, they give me a message. Almost there. Please check your email to confirm your account. See? So they tell me, check my email address. And they say here, if this is not your email, go back. If you haven't received the email, check your spam folder. If not, email us. And so here's an example of their activation email. So make it clear in the subject line, what is this email about? Because everybody gets a ton of email. And if your email doesn't stand out or make it clear, you might not notice it and you might skip it. So this one says confirm your account, and it mentions Heroku. And then here's an English message. Thanks for signing up. You must follow this link to activate your account. And look, this one looks very similar to Mailgun. So ID Heroku account accept. This one says accounts activate. You can choose whatever word you want. You can choose account validate. You don't even need account there. You can put user activate, use anything you want, as long as whatever is in your link is also what's in your routes file, it doesn't matter. But you notice that they have the same crazy looking string, or they've got two. They've got this one plus this one. This one could be a user ID. It's up to you. But my point is, they also use the idea of kind of a nonce string to do the same thing. So if I had that one with a slash, my routes file for this one would look something like that. I'd have some sort of ID here and some sort of nonce variable. So I click the link and stuff. I have this just to show you what kind of error message that you might want to show. There was a problem with your login. So this is a page that comes up after you click the reset password in the email. It sends you this page. Password, confirm password, set passwords, login. So create your password and log into your Heroku account. So, oh, no. As I mentioned, their sign up page does not have a password field. So they make you enter a password after you activate your account. So that's what this page is. Set your account, set your password. Maybe by doing it this way, they can use the same form as a reset password. I don't know why, but they could. And so here's the message. Your account is all set up. Click here to proceed as so-and-so. Reset password. Nice title on the page. Tell them what to do. Click the link. Message about what to do. Check your inbox. Okay. So that is that. Let me show you real quick. So let's. So the United States, Amazon is a very popular website for shopping. So their site's a little different. You don't have a sign in. You don't have a sign in or a register button. So they have something called, they have this, but so there's this little, not the same as everybody else's, but Amazon can do whatever they want because everybody knows Amazon. So create your Amazon account, name, email, password. So this is where you can, English is different. Re-enter your password, confirm your password. But if you have certain requirements for the password, make sure the users know that. In this class, we haven't made any restrictions. Like if I was Dr. Cho, I would force you to say, your password must be 8 characters, must include a number, must include 1 capital letter, must include 1 non-alphanumeric character. I mean, that's kind of what's common on some websites just for security purposes. But I know in this class, we don't require anything. So when I watch people create fake accounts, they just like password A, password B, password C. It's like, okay, it's just a test. But whatever if you have any requirements, you need to tell the user what they are. If there are any, so on this page, I think every field is required. So they don't mention anything about, if there is ever a form that has some fields are required, some are not required, always let the users know what's required and what's not. Because nothing is specified here, you kind of assume everything is required. So as I mentioned, on all sign-in pages, there are always a forgot your password or create an account. So for them, they put the forgot your password in the same area as the password field. Sometimes they put it at the bottom next to this one. It's up to you how you design your form. But those are 2 important pieces. So their forgot password looks like this. So they call it password assistance. And so Amazon lets people use phone numbers instead of email addresses, but they tell you. So if anybody does anything wrong, make sure you give a clear error message. Like there's a problem, good error message. What else? Those are all my slides for today, but so you have the user sign up. Oh, so let's go back and look at some pseudocode. So user sign up you've already thought about, but let's look at that real quick. Let me just go to my fake controller. So this one just, make sure to include the password hash. in text, password default. Ooh. When before, please make sure to use the password hash function when saving password to database, right? So I think most of you, when I looked at your system diagram, you are saving a hash password. So today you know how to use the password hash function. But then we have the public function sign up, sign in. Sign in. So this one, use the password. Check the password. So how do you check the password? How do you do this? So when somebody signs in, they send email and password, right? So how do you do this? Select. I'm not going to give you the code. Write query. Yeah. Write query to find account. If found. So you're writing a query to find the account, and you're make sure that you're. I'll say that. Write query to find account password. Hope you know what that means. If the password is found, that just means that write query to find account. I'm not going to say. So if found, use password verify to see if the form password, if you paid attention the other day, it looks something like post, maybe like that. Matches the database hashed password. So use password verify, do that. I think I've told you enough how to use it. I don't want to tell you everything because you have to learn something. If true, if the password verify is true, then if true, then let the user then set session variable. If false, give error message. But real quick, so I talked about this set the session variable. So a session variable is it's a kind of like a hidden variable that is persistent. Once I set the session variable, if I go from page to page and I click around the website, I don't lose that variable because it's saved kind of like in a cookie. And so you can set a session variable such as So it looks like this, session. So you can say logged in equals 1, or session active equals 1. Whatever variable that you want to use, that's how you can check to see if somebody's logged in. I think a lot of you are checking the database to see if somebody's logged in, but technically, the PHP will create a session and it will live. I don't know what the session timeout is. Maybe you can change that, but what the session timeout means, like if I logged into Amazon, so if I went to Amazon and I signed in and then I closed Amazon and then I went to lunch and I came back to Amazon, because if a session variable has a certain timeout, if it's not like 30 minutes yet, Amazon will keep me logged in. So PHP has a session timeout where you can adjust how long a session exists. So if I want to log somebody out after 5 minutes of not being on the website, you can change that to be stuff like that. So if you want to expire the session after 30 minutes of activity, you can use this, blah, 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 blah. But so it's very helpful to have a logged in, because as you have the user goes to different pages, as an example, wrong button. Percent. So by having a session variable, if somebody comes back to this Mailgun page, I don't want to show a login button because I already know they logged in. So this button should say log out, and I would not show this sign up button. And so I can use a session variable. So every time a page loads, I can look at the session variable and say, is session logged in equals 1? If true, make this button say log out, and then don't show this button. If session logged in equals false, then I would show this button and show this button. And so you have to use a session variable because only a session variable will persist, will live throughout all the different page loads. So every other variable other than a cookie will disappear whenever you hit click, 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 click. And so you have to use a session variable to store that information about being logged in. So make sure your buttons only show up if they're supposed to. If you have a login all the time, even if you're logged in, then you're not doing it right. I think that's it. Today we're talking about user authentication. So you're going to need a password field. I have something called isActive. I noticed some people had something called permission. Somebody had a field called permission. Sometimes you can have one called isAdmin. because I think Dr. Cho, I think on some of your system diagrams, you had mentioned like users can do this, but then only admins can do this. Only admins can see a list of the users. And so in order to know if somebody's an admin, you have to have some sort of field in the database, right? So if this is an admin, if I'm an admin, you know, I put a 1 here. And so as part of your login process, when you check to see if somebody is a real account, you need to also check what is their permission level. Are they admin or not admin? And based on that, you might have another session variable. You might have is admin equals 1. And that tells you that the person is admin. So if you have a session that says is admin, then you don't have to keep looking at the database to checking if they're an admin. So we know how to use a hash word, minimum 60 characters. Nonce can be any number you want. You can write a function to create an alphanumeric password, alphanumeric string if you want. Just use MD5. Have an admin field. What else do I need to teach you? I'm trying to help you finish your sign up, sign in. Actually, you can do a lot of things. I showed you your reset password. Oh. You'll need to know how to send that email. In the PHP mailer directory, there's source code, SMTP. Source, exception, language. Nope. Exception, source, security, language. Oh, maybe this one. Language. Nope. I guess I'll have to give it to you. So I will give you the PHP mailer used to have their code here, but I don't see it. Let me read me. Don't check. Read me. Yeah, here it is. So in the vendor directory, so like I have IoT, your app, there's a vendor directory. In the vendor directory, there's PHP mailer. Read the README file, because a README file has this simple example. And the simple example has, these are all the different variables that you need to create, right? So you can use there all the information here. Yeah, it's got the use part. So use the combination of what I showed you in the video, but in order to use the code, you can get the code from this README file. And then, yeah. So that way I don't have to give you another file because you already have this file. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Are there any questions? Let's see. What if I can do this? Oh, that's one way. That's one way. I mean, I think it's a good. We'll call it a good homework assignment. Write a function to create an alphanumeric string. Example, create nonce, and then 16. So if I sent you a function, create nonce, if I ran a function called create nonce 16, that means I want to create an alphanumeric string length 16. So that's your homework assignment. I guarantee you could Google this answer in 5 minutes. Your Google skills are pretty good. I saw you. You fixed your Vagrant setup. This is an easy. Just to give you a hint, there's like 0 through 9, A to Z, A to Z. So you can make a long string, 0 through 9, A, B, C, D, capital A, capital B, like that. So you can make a string here, and let's say your string is, let's say that string is 26, 52, 62. You can just pick a random number between 0 and 62, 24. Pick the 24th character. That's your first letter. Run a random number, 18. Pick the 18th letter of that string, right? That's one way to do it. That's how I would do it. But like I said, you could run MD5. I don't care. But that's just good practice. You know, practice how to write a for loop, things like that. So next week, I think I'm teaching something. I don't know when I teach again, but I'll talk about REST API, and we'll look at more PHP. So far, I have not taught a lot about PHP. I have not taught and showed you much about writing MySQL with PHP. So we'll do that next week. I mean, maybe Wednesday, Thursday. I don't remember. Or maybe tomorrow. I'll check. Does anybody know when I teach again? What's on the calendar? But you need to know more PHP to do some of your homework. I mean, to do your project. So I will teach you more about that. But if you have any questions that you've come up with already, let me know. And I hope to see some of you in my office hours, because there are a lot of things we can fix and make better about your databases. And it's better to solve those problems early than later. Okay.